Hello, everybody. This is Off the Mark with the Bickersteins. This is the podcast that solves all your media crises, every last one of them. I'm Mark.
And I'm Kathy.
Kathy is joining us from an undisclosed location someplace in America.
I'm in the witness protection program now, and I cannot tell you where I am. I'm just going to call it Studio Benz in the Midwest.
That is, if you have a chance to check out our YouTube page, you'll see Kathy sitting in a parked car, enjoying her coffee, not going anywhere. It's really interesting.
Hey, I'm not going to be that council person who got in trouble for distracted driving by driving while on a Zoom call with a seatbelt on, pretending like he was in his office.
Is your seatbelt on?
No, because I'm not moving. I think I'm safe.
All right. So now that we got that worked out, we this week, what are we talking about, Kathy?
We are talking about how to prepare media coverage to avoid creating your own crisis. And just really like media coverage. How do you get media coverage? I think a lot of people think it just happens. They're like
I'm going to put out a press release. That's what they say.
Or the Today Show just called me yesterday. They want me to be on for like an 8-minute segment. I think I'm going to go. That never happens. If you saw somebody on the Today Show, it's because they had people behind the scenes pitching and working hard to get you on.
Well, that leads to the first point, which is the first thing. And this is, I'm going to rip the Band-Aid off right from the start here. You're not going to be on Oprah. You know, we hear that a lot. I want to be on Oprah. And then we have to inform them that Oprah isn't really on anymore, not with her traditional talk show.
Right.
Unless you're Meghan Markle and you're hijacking Harry to LA, I just don't think you're going to be on Oprah. That doesn't mean you shouldn't aim high. You should always aim high.
Aim for Oprah, baby. But just realize that she
back and be on 5 days a week just for you.
Well, she does her streamcast or whatever. Like she does her, I don't know where she does that thing, that show. But you know, it's big people. It's like really big. It's like you got to be a prince or
or a B-list actress that was married to Prince.
Yeah, I think she would be called a princess. Hello.
Is she though? I thought they got rid of all of those titles and everything, didn't they? Once they moved to, I don't know. I don't keep up with. Okay, the point is, you should aim high, but you should also know the media landscape. Like I've heard people have said to me, I want to be on Johnny Carson. We're like, he's not with us anymore. But you could be on the Today Show or Good Morning America or CBS This Morning or Kelly Clarkson, or there's Ellen, you got 1 year left. She's announced that she's wrapping things up in 2022. So, that's going to be a tough booking, but you realize, you got to figure out what your story is. And then, what are you getting pinged? You're getting pinged while you sit in the car going anywhere?
So media tip 101 is when you're on the media or on the TV or during the middle of your interview, do not have your phone on. Put it on vibrate. That's like 101. I forgot to do that.
You know what? I may have forgotten that as well. So if this Zoom of you sitting in a car parked somewhere gets interrupted, it's because I forgot to do the do not disturb.
Well, at least we've made progress. If you hit the record button, that will be good.
Oh, shit. Oh, wait, I did. Okay. I did hit the record button.
Okay. Yay. All right. So what do you need to do to prepare for the media? I think a lot of clients of ours anyway, they like the idea of getting media coverage, but they don't understand all the work that actually goes into it. It really is a strategic effort to get into, to public relations efforts to get on shows like the Today Show or even your local newscast.
Yeah, I think the local newscast is great if you can get positive coverage or some sort of spotlight coverage of something that you're doing that you want out there, local news is a great place to be. So are all those other shows that we talked about, but and you never know where you never know where you're going to end up. You never know what you got. You can aim high, you can, as we said, aim high, but also be realistic and try for multiple places.
But also, I mean, a lot of people think that they, I want to be on NBC Nightly News or whatever, or the Today Show or Good Morning America or CBS This Morning or whatever. But to be honest, you really need to think about your strategy even more than that. Where are your potential customers? Where are the people that you're trying to talk to? What do they watch? So if you're a local business and you really only service like a small region, like let's say if you're in Washington, D.C. and you're only really servicing the DMV, do you need national media as much because you're trying to only get customers from the DMV? Well, those are things you might have to consider. Like it might look good to your local customers for you to be an expert on, Fox News Business or something, or Today Show or something like that, or CNBC. But that may not be driving your local customers to you. So those are all things like when you think about a media strategy, you got to really think about, where are my customers? Do I want national customers? Can I service national customers? Do I want local customers?
Do I want phone calls from all over the country when I only am doing the DMV? Right. Do I want to deal with phone calls? Now, don't forget, being on national TV or national coverage, print, podcast, Clubhouse, whatever, there's a halo effect, and it looks good. It gives you that good housekeeping seal of approval, to use an old reference. Yeah, if these guys say, if he's been on this network or if she's been on this podcast, she must know what she's talking about. So, yes, those are always good to have, but then again, you're going to get phone calls from places that you may not want to be getting phone calls from because you're not offering your service in Nebraska.
Yeah. So, I mean, I get some of the things. I mean, a lot of people wonder, how do I get on TV? And really, it always comes down to, like we always tell people all the time, storytelling. It really comes down to, what story do you have to tell? What reporter and what network and what radio station, what podcast really wants to hear it. So you have to really think about your story. And when it's a story like maybe you're a bank or you're a financial services service company, and so you have to think about, well, I'm not going to just talk about my services, right? No one's going to want to know that. But like if you're a financial services person and maybe and this would be a great story idea. You'd be like, okay, how do I really want to talk to people about mortgages. Maybe you're a bank and a mortgage division is a line of yours, and you'd like to attract local customers for a certain loan or whatever. So you might give advice and say, hey, let's talk about the real estate market right now. It's booming. It's insane. But is now the time to buy? Is it going to be a bust, or should you wait a year to try to get in? Because if you get in now, you're going to, overpay, and then it's going to go down, and then that's going to end up being bad for your financial situation. But, there's studies and there's articles out that says that the housing the housing boom is still going to keep happening for another 7% increase in the next year. And guess what? It's going to cost more money. Interest rates are going up. So instead of, you paying 5% to borrow money, it's going to 3.5%. So by the way, it's a good time to buy. If you're thinking about buying, you should buy. So that would be a good story idea for like somebody who either a bank client that has mortgage, potential customers, or maybe a financial services person who gives financial advice. So you have to think in stories, and that's a story that reporters would want to hear about.
So you're suggesting the first thing you do is figure out what your story is.
Yeah. And if you don't have a story, you're probably not going to get on. I mean, you have to think of interesting stories. And then when you think of those stories, the reporter's going to go, okay, I don't want to just talk to you. I want to talk to a home buyer who's been on the fence and is like, okay, I'm going to go ahead and buy because I'm looking at like lumber's increasing 35%. building houses is just going to cost more. I mean, all the arrows are pointing upwards. So yeah, I'm paying more than now than what I want to, but it's just going to get worse. So you'll want a customer, because the reporter will probably, that's one of the first things they'll ask you is, do you have a real person that we can talk to, that we can build our story around?
And what are those people called in the industry?
Well, they get the name of being victims, but they're not really, only because, in the news business, if you go on a story, it's that
I need a victim. I need an example of what you're talking about.
I need a Vic. I need a Vic. Your assignment editor, I'll be smoking a cigar. And I need a Vic. Give me a.
They're still smoking cigars in the newsroom these days.
They're not smoking cigars, but they might still say
that was the term.
Even though it's just really, I need a real person. Like, you need to get me real people. And if you don't have real people, they'll go, give me man on the street. Just like ask some random people. I need somebody. Well, I can't find a person. Man on the street. Just ask people if they're going to be buying houses next year. Okay.
So to go to Kathy's point is if, okay, so your story is your insight on the housing market, and they want to sit down with you and you're going to impart wisdom, and then they're going to want somebody that has just bought a house or is about to buy a house, is in the housing market. And if you're able to provide those both elements to a media outlet, then it makes their job easier. And keep in mind, they have a lot of things going on, 22 different stories a day. I mean, they're just cranking it out. So if you're able to provide what we always call as a one-stop shop, well, they come, they get their interviews, they get the B-roll, they can show some real estate signs, for sale signs. You have a better chance of getting your story told, with you being the expert, the thought leader, which then gets on the air, and then you put on your social media and on your blog and in your email newsletter and on your website. And then people go, this person knows what they're talking about. They must, because the news media says they do.
And the other thing is, when you have the, you decide I have this great story, people are talking about this. This is something that, or maybe nobody's talking about it, but people should be talking about it. Google. We have a platform where we can find out what every reporter on the planet's talking about, and we can find their contact information. But it's really like layman people who don't, who aren't public relations or media specialists. You can just Google and see what reporters from the Washington Post or from whatever local outlet have talked about this topic in the past, get their contact information, say, hey, I know you've written about this in the past. Did you know this was happening in the marketplace? And I think it's a great story. This is what I have for you. So
you can also, you could pitch yourself on social media. I mean, a lot of the media is looking over social media all the time, trying to find stories. So,
sure. Or a lot of times, reporters are in Clubhouse looking. Reporters are looking everywhere for story ideas. So they're looking at their social media. They're obviously looking on the internet. They're listening to Clubhouse rooms. They're everywhere trying to find story ideas. And you never know when they might come across your blog even. But you want to make sure, if you're pitching a reporter, you don't be pitching the gardening reporter when you're talking about a real estate story, so if you're pitching them actively, you should make sure that you do some homework. But if you're just out there talking about topics, they might find you. So put your stuff on social media, put your stuff on, write blogs.
And we talked about figuring out what your story is. I mean, and the work that goes into this, we spend hours with clients trying to figure out what the different stories they have and to them, sometimes it's right in front of their face. It's something that's on their desk, or that there's something that they've been dealing with. And it may seem overly obvious to them, but to us, it's like, I know that's a gold mine. That's a great story. So
yeah,
figure out what you're dealing with, if you're seeing a trend. Reporters love trends, an increase in this, a decrease in that, a breakthrough, some kind of new development, science or otherwise. health, or they're always looking for those kind of things. But you know what? We kind of jumped ahead because we talked about getting this media coverage, but something you need to be prepared for. You need to be prepared for a number of things if you do have that story. What are some of those things, Kathy?
Well,
I want to see if you're paying attention, if you're ready.
Okay, let's see if I'm paying attention.
Because your picture, well, I'm seeing about half of your head.
Oh, I'm not looking at myself, so I'm like moving around here, there. Is that better?
Yeah, there you go.
Hello. If you're watching on Zoom, hello. No, so one of the big things that we find is people like, let's say a lot of clients are like, oh, well, we want media coverage. And then we're like, okay, great. What's your topic? Whatever. But then we look at their website and their website is not ready for prime time. And you get one bite of the apple. Sometimes a client or a potential client might come to you one time. And so you need to make sure when they come to you, you are totally ready. How does your website look? Does it look good? Can they find, if you're talking on the radio about, selling chainsaws, and then your website is about, I don't know, trees, but there's no chainsaws to be seen, that could confuse people, and they could
that was really random. Where did you get chainsaws from?
I don't know. I'm out in the crazy woods and I'm thinking about that movie with the chainsaw people. I'm getting kind of scared out here. And
you better lock the doors of that car then that you're in there.
I know. I am.
And make sure the engine starts, because in those movies, the engine never starts. So make sure that the car actually.
And then the people, they don't run the proper way. I would run the proper way. I got it down. I'm not going to be the person that just goes, ah! And then waits for the chainsaw to get them.
Nothing personal, but you run like Tim Conway.
Well, if the chainsaw was following me, I think I might run like, somebody else. That's not
Usain Bolt. Yes.
I might run like a little rabbit who, I might have incentive to go faster. But so other things that you have to be prepared for is like, is your bandwidth ready for an influx of calls and emails? Do you have people that can answer,
We had a story once. Yeah, we had a story. We thought that we had it all set up and ready to go, but the phone calls that came in after a TV, this was early in the early days of, and the client just didn't have the bandwidth to handle all the phone calls. He thought he did. He told me he did, but then
we asked him if he did. And one of the things, like let's say let's say you're a doctor's office and you're going to be on the 5 o'clock news with some new procedure or treatment or whatever. Then go ahead, and people might call right then and there after they see the story. So have somebody, stay at your office later from like 5 to 8 to answer phone calls. The last thing you want is them to get like a voicemail. So those are things that you should be thinking about, and also remember, we had a client that we were like, hey, how is your website bandwidth? Because you're going to get a lot of website traffic. The last thing in the world you want is for your website to crash. No, I'm good. I talked to my web people. I'm totally good. He was on the local Channel 4, Washington, D.C., network there. And what happened, of course, the website crashed. He calls me, oh my God, my website crashed. And I'm like, dude, I told you, so anyway, it was down for like 15 minutes. It got it back up. But, you never know how many calls you missed in that 15 minutes, and how many people you turned off. And they're like, obviously this is not a real deal or something. So
there is an equation. The equation is the more you're prepared and ready to go, the fewer calls you will have. And the less prepared you are, the more calls the story will generate for you. So you have
some other things. If you're starting to pitch yourself as an expert, things that you need to always be prepared for. There's nothing worse than like, you're like, hey, I'm really actively pitching myself. And then a reporter calls you and you're like, not right. Oh, I can't see you until like Thursday. And they're like, dude, my story's running today at 5 o'clock. So if you're going to start pitching yourself to reporters, we always tell our clients, you have to be pretty flexible. You have to build in a certain amount of time during the day that you could actually stop what you're doing. Because reporters are, and we can say this because we were them, they're like, they They need what they need. They want it when they want it, and they got to have it. And if you're not available, they'll go to somebody else. So make
Who
sure
does that
that you're
remind me of?
available.
Who does that? Wait, did that sound familiar? No. Okay.
Yeah, yourself as a reporter.
Okay, we'll go with that one. Yeah, we'll go with that. But yeah, you're right. It's called the care and feeding of the media. You got, if you want to be on TV, you want to be in an article, you want to be on a podcast, you have to be flexible. Your schedule needs to accommodate them. They don't need to accommodate you. There's still with the audience deterioration and the numbers declining and the more ways that they are able to deliver news and other things. I'm not sure what word I'm looking for here, but doesn't matter. They're still the biggest guys on the block, and they expect you to, they're polite about it. They're nice about it. They understand reality, but yeah, you got to make time for them, and you got to make time for them that works for them.
Yeah, so make sure somebody always answer the phone, or if you give contact information to a reporter, give them your cell phone and give them your email, give them your, I don't even know, the bat signal, whatever it is, but make sure you answer the phone call. And you're super, and if it's like, let's say you're a doctor and you're in surgery or something, make sure your office knows that you need to be responsive to a reporter, and so they can say, hey,
you can finish the surgery. Yeah, I think that would be important to do.
I think he should finish the surgery, or she should finish the surgery. Yes, don't come out of the surgery to do the interview. That could be like later medical malpractice if something goes wrong. But anyway.
Speaking of news and speaking of news coverage, extra, read all about it. Do people still say that? No, I got a better one. Breaking news. This is breaking news. You got to read 1631digitalnews.com. That's 1631digitalnews.com. 1631digitalnews.com. This is a new site that pulls the best content from the best sources from around the internet. Get the latest breaking news, U.S. news, sports, luxury, music, entertainment, and even a great lineup of podcasts, including, guess what? Which one? Off the Mark with the Bickersteins. Check it all out today at www.1631digitalnews.com. That's www.1631digitalnews. I think of the word I was looking for was delivery system. There's so many different ways people get their information and these days, and it's just getting more and more, but still getting in the news is important. If it's important to you, you got to play along and you got to be accommodating.
That doesn't mean you have to, cancel all your freaking client meetings for the next month. You just have to understand that you got to bill in time. And you know what? Most reporters, they want to be in and out. So most of the time, if they're coming to you, if they could be in and out in 15 minutes, that's their happy spot. They don't want to be talking to you for more than that.
And with Zoom, there's no reason you can't make yourself available. Now every day, even as things open up, I don't think, I think we're going to stick with Zoom and stick with Skype. And sure, reporters want to do interviews in person, but they can just as easily do them over Zoom. And that's changed the landscape considerably.
The other thing you have to think of is, which a lot of I remember when I was a medical reporter and I would go into a lot of doctor offices, and they would not be thinking about where they were going to do the interview. So, I would come in and I'd have to spend time trying to find a room and whatever. So think about if you are doing an in-person interview, which now that we're opening up and we're getting vaccinated, that could happen. But even so think of location that's out of the way, that's not going to be noisy, that you could actually spend some time and not be interrupted. Or even if you're on a Zoom call, think of your, there's a lot of prep that you have to do for a Zoom call. First of all, make sure you hold the computer up so your eye level. Make sure you have good lighting, and that's on you.
Everything that you're doing right now, right? So you do the interviews from a car parked in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, and have it perfectly backlit. But hey, I don't think like that I think the backlighting helps my wrinkles. So
there are no wrinkles. There are no wrinkles.
Look, and here I could even do this. There we go, a little sunglass action. Now I'm looking good.
Oh, don't do what you're doing. Go ahead. So last week we interviewed, and I'm not going to be able to pull his name out of my brain, but the gentleman who does the funny commercials. And he said something fascinating because, and these are commercials, and in a lot of ways, you can sort of think of news reports as, I wouldn't say commercials, but it's an opportunity to share your information. But he talked about clients came to him. They would spend quite a bit on commercials. They're running the commercials, and the clients would run out of inventory. And that was fine because they could shut those commercials off. They were paying, to turn them on and turn them off. But with especially with supply lines like they are now, which still aren't that much better than they were during the worst of COVID, you got to make sure you got the stuff that you're selling. If you're selling inventory and you run out, and after you've worked this hard to get on the news or to run a commercial, that just is wasted money and wasted time.
Yeah. And not only that, but if you're out there and people think you have a service and you can't provide that service, your reputation is actually going to be damaged a bit, because like I said, you get one bite at that apple of a first impression. And if they see you on the news and they're like, oh, this is a credible guy and great, but I can't hire him for 6 months, then they're just like, they get more frustrated actually than anything else. So,
well, there is a certain exclusivity. Having a 6-month waiting list isn't the worst thing in the world in his situation, but for you, it may not be. We're not all running Studio 54 here trying to decide who gets in. We want to sell to everybody. Old reference. I don't know why I was watching the Halston thing on Netflix, and there was a lot about Studio 54.
Well, anyway, even if you have nobody wants to be on a 6-month waiting list, no matter, some people will put up with it if they have to. If you're a builder that you really want the house built by this builder, but trust me, nobody is like, oh, I'm dying to wait 6 months for this. I mean, for some people they will, if it's somebody they really, really want to do business with, or a service that they really want that particular person has such a big differentiator that they'll go to them and wait, even though it's a painful wait potentially. But yeah, so you have to think of those things before you think about the media, before you think about doing media coverage, because it actually, and not only that, you also have to really prepare for questions. You have no idea, even if it's like a friendly interview and it's like, hey, this is something, I'm going to talk about mortgages or whatever. You never know what question a reporter could ask that actually could turn around and be a negative for your business. So you really need to think about, practicing media training, understanding, because a reporter could come there, and I've done this a million times as a reporter. I wasn't coming to do any gotcha kind of thing. Well, I have done that, but that really wasn't what I did most of the time. But I would come and I'm like, hey, maybe I could get a couple stories out of this interview, out of this particular expert. So I would say, oh, well, while I'm here, why don't I ask about this? The other thing, if you've got a reporter there and they really just need you as a talking head, don't be afraid to say, hey, listen, this is other thing that we could talk about real quick. You don't have to do a story now, but if you want to get me on camera now to talk about X, Y, and Z and use the story later, you can do that. But also you really need to prepare and just think about reporters' questions, think about what you are there to talk about, but think about the things that could go wrong and make sure that you're ready to get out of a question And practicing the way to get out of a question is important.
Don't wing it. Definitely don't wing it, right?
Never wing it. And also just, it's knowing, like, if you've got a camera in front of you and you ask the question and you're like, oh gosh, this is a question that could really get me in trouble. I don't know what to do. You don't have to ask. You could literally say, you know what? I don't really know. I'm gonna have to get back to you on that because I have to do some. I have to ask like my partners, or I have to do some little. I have to do some research on that. I can't answer that. I can't give you a really good answer right now. I'd like to like answer that question later. Um, so there are ways to get out of a question that don't sound fishy or don't sound, that just are authentic and genuine. You don't have to say, oh, I can't talk about that, because now that's going to sound suspect. And if I'm a reporter, I'm going to go, oh, well, now I really want to talk about that.
Well, that goes to 2 points. 2 points that we always make. They're not your friend. They may be friendly, and you may them from TV, or you watch them work, and you want to be their friend, but they're there to do a job. And second of all, that job is not a commercial for you. There's going to be a turn in the story that questions something, that brings in the negative, or, this is a news story. It's not a commercial. And you got to be ready for that turn where they talk about something that's newsworthy and then that you're presenting. And then, oh, but what about this? So you got to be prepared for that turn in the story where they start talking about the negatives, and they're always going to get something wrong. They're going to misspell your name. They're going to mispronounce it. I mean, if that's the worst it is, that's fine. But or you're going to think that they oversimplified. They're making it understandable for a broad audience. So these are all things you have to be prepared for.
The other thing is, you got to prepare. They may be talking to 3 experts, and you may end up with they may spend 15-20 minutes interviewing you, and you may end up with a 7-second soundbite, or you may be cut out of the story altogether. So you have to understand, like, what we tell our clients is, until you see the tease and that you're in the story, don't even really believe, because there's so many times that stories, like, I've been on stories, I've produced them, I've shot them, and then there's a tornado that comes in and everything's dropped, that half the newscast goes to the weather coverage and the story never airs. So until, you got to realize expectations. Breaking news and certain news topics take priority. And if you're not, part of that priority, you may get cut. And if it's okay, if you end up in a piece and you have one soundbite, you can still use that one soundbite and on your social media and build it up, that you were the expert and whatever. So you can still benefit from that 1 7-second soundbite. So don't think, I'm not going to do it unless I get all the questions and all the answers. You can still utilize that 7-second soundbite to show that you are the expert that the media comes to. So just A, be prepared for that, and B, even if it is a smaller, stage that you're on, that's okay.
So now that we've talked everybody out of it,
I don't think that we have.
No, we just told them what the concerns are. Any other concerns that we haven't mentioned yet? So let me just tell you this one story about the power of the media. That now, I mean, we all know the good, the bad, the fake news, whatever you want to. Media is very controversial. We like it. We recommend it. I really once saw. I mean, you could doing as a reporter, you always saw the impact that you could have. But one day I was doing a story. I don't even remember what it was about, but I included an 8-second shot of this car in a showroom. I don't remember why, but it was this purple car that was in the showroom. The photographer actually just sort of panned across it. And for some reason, I talked to the auto dealer the next day, and he's like, that shot you had of that car, somebody walked in and bought the car right off the showroom. They said, I want that purple car I saw on the news. And then I asked for a commission, but I couldn't get it because I was in the news.
Because you were ethical.
Yeah, that was crazy. Can't believe I couldn't, But yeah, I mean, things could turn that quickly. Exposure in the news, good exposure, upbeat exposure, newsworthy exposure could be good for your business if it's handled right and you prepare for it properly.
One last thing is just make sure you have all the little pieces of the puzzle. Like if a reporter's coming to do a story, think visuals, especially if it's a TV reporter or even if it's a newspaper reporter, that a lot of times they have to do a visual component on their social media. So think, pictures, any old video that you may have, anything that could tell the story, think of the visual elements, think of how you watch news and on TV and think of all the different things that they need and have it available for them. And if it's a complicated topic and you're like, oh my gosh, they could get this wrong, like have very simple bullet points or FAQs, like how is this treatment different from this X treatment? Don't be afraid. Like those kind of cheat sheets, reporters really appreciate because they don't want to get a story wrong. And if it's a complicated topic and if there's things that you can, show them visuals or infographics or whatever, they appreciate those extra elements and they may use all of them. So think of what a reporter might need to tell the story. Or if you don't know, ask the reporter, hey, what are some other things that I could get you that would help you tell the story?
To that point, don't be limited by the type of outlet it is. Radio needs video for when they post online. They need photos. Print also, video for social media. So everybody's using everything these days. Don't just think just because they're one type of outlet that they're not going to need the type of things that Kathy's talking about: pictures, video, anything else that they may be in need of that might be helpful to them. It'd be an example, a prop. Props are always helpful. If you can hold something up and say, this pen is changing my life. A la the Wolf of Wall Street selling a pen. That's helpful. Also, we talked about doing interviews on Zoom. If you're sitting there and doing an interview on Zoom, you can have your notes in front of you. You can have your notes on the screen, on a Word doc in front of you, just some bullet points of what you want to cover. There's nothing wrong with having a cheat sheet. Nobody's going to know. Just don't, get prompter face and read it. So all good tips. If you want some more, maybe they should contact someplace, Kathy, if they need some help.
Yes. Come to onthemarkmedia.com. You can contact both of us. You can find us on our social platforms. I think now you know everything that you need to know to get started, but if you need some help, we are here to help you.
That's onthemarkmedia.com. That's Mark with a C. Anything else? Anything else? I think we covered it. I think we're good. So you could start the car. You could. I paid the ransom. You can get out of the car. The kidnappers have let you go.
I'm gonna run from the bears and the chainsaw strapping scary people out here.
All right. onthemarkmedia.com, Mark with a C. Off the Mark is a presentation of On the Mark Media. Contact us at On the Mark Media on Twitter and at info@On the Mark Media if you want to send us an email. You can call us. You can send up carrier pigeons. We are delighted to hear from you. Until next week, I'm Mark.
I'm Kathy.
I got nothing else. That's it. Do well on your media interview. Take care.